My name's Stephen Daniel. I'm a senior community liaison with the Houston Police Department. I'm the department's subject matter expert on active shooting defense for civilians. And that's our topic today. As you can see up there on the slide, this is the definition of an active shooter. People often get this confused and they label many other violent acts as active shootings when truly they're not. And the significance of that is there is a uniquely different mindset possessed by the true active shooter. And we'll talk about that today. This is about ordinary people doing extraordinary things. That would be you, the victim of an active shooter, with your survival mindset. That's our focus today, is showing you how to create your own customized, unique survival mindset for the world you live in. Not just at work or at the grocery store or worship, but all the different venues you frequent on a regular basis. And ladies and gentlemen, let me be honest with you. This works. It really does. In the years I've been teaching this, I've had 4 survivors come back to me and say, Mr. Daniel, that information you taught saved my life when they started killing people all around me. Most recently was a lady from Houston. She was out in Las Vegas at that terrible shooting that they had out there. So the reality is, if you'll follow these suggestions, you will be in a much better position should you unfortunately ever become the victim of an active shooter. Now, we can see there on the chart how it breaks out by demographics. Business or commerce is the largest sector of events for active shooting. For many years, it was education, but now it's past. But do I think there's any fewer shootings in our schools? Absolutely not. There's just a few more shootings occurring in the business place, and that's skewing those percentages just a tad. Now we're going to talk about 4 categories of active shooters today. The first is K through 12. Then we move to the college and university shooter, and the workplace shooter, and the house of worship. These all come from the Violence Project from the National Institute of Justice. Let's talk about each one just briefly. K through 12 tends to be a white male. The reasoning behind that, I have no idea, but that's what it's proved out to be, is the shooter normally is a white male. They normally have a history of trauma, and they get into a high degree of planning. That's what we saw with the Columbine shooters. They planned that massacre out to the nth degree. And then finally, they used stolen guns because obviously at the age of a high school or middle school student, they can't legally go out and purchase a gun. So ladies and gentlemen, if you have weapons in your house, I have no problem with that. But please, be a responsible gun owner. And I understand your child or your grandchild would never do anything like this. Are you willing to bet their life on it? Be a responsible gun owner if in fact you have weapons in your home. Keep them secured. Now we go to college and university shooters. They tend to be non-white males, a little different than what we just talked about. And they do have a history of violence and childhood trauma. They tend to be suicidal in many, many cases, and they legally obtain handguns. Now, we do understand that there's a lot of younger people in college that are not of legal age that can legally buy a handgun. But come on, when you were in school, you wanted a bottle of wine, you weren't old enough, could you ever find an upperclassman perhaps to go out and purchase that bottle of wine? Same thing with a weapon. They have no problems giving a classmate that's a few years older $50 extra, and they get the gun that they want. So they do somewhat legally obtain their handguns. Now we go to the workplace shooter, and they tend to be males in their 40s. And there's really no racial profile. It's all over the board here. Normally, it tends to be a blue-collar worker, and the guns that they use are weapons that, quite frankly, they have possessed usually for quite some time, and now all of a sudden, life has become overwhelming, and the only thing they know to do is act out this terrible act of violence. House of worship shooter. Tend to be males in their 40s. Well, that's what we saw pretty much last December up in White Settlement, Texas, a male in his 40s, and they are suicidal prior to the event. They have a criminal record and a violent history. Usually they use a handgun in these situations. They know the victims, i.e. they've attended worship there and scoped things out if they're not a member. And they don't do a great deal of planning here, folks. They just kind of boil over and these terrible events unfold. Now, in 2019, we saw 28 active shooting events. 97 individuals were killed and 150 people were wounded, and 2 law enforcement officers died in these events in 2019. 40% of the shooters committed suicide. 30 of the shooters were, we had 30 shooters, 29 were male, 1 female. And 6 incidents occurred in Texas. I hate to say it, but we have more active shooting events in Texas than we do in any other state in 2019, followed secondly with 5 in California. Now, we do know that in 2019, 5 of these situations were resolved by the shooter committing suicide. 10 were killed by law enforcement or civilians, and 15 were apprehended. Statistically, you're not going to be the victim of an active shooter. Well, that sounds good, right? Look at these bullet points and tell me what you think now. The reality is, any of us could become the victim of an active shooter. And you'll notice 3 of those bullet points happen to be in the greater Houston area. So again, we are no more exempt from the violence of active shooters than anywhere else in the country. It's okay to be a hero, but let me tell you, when you're the victim of an active shooter, it's about you getting out alive and going home to your loved ones. Now, you can assist people as you depart, but you're not going to delay your departure at all to beg and plead with someone frozen with fear in those moments. We do know that calm is contagious. If you have created your various survival mindsets, as I'm suggesting today, I'm suggesting that you will find yourself just a little calmer in this crisis. And people are going to gravitate to that because you're going to be a little more in control of the situation. And we do know that leadership fills a vacuum. Again, if you're prepared, you visualized, and you have your survival mindset, and you're leading with purpose, people are going to follow you, ladies and gentlemen. And we do know intelligent responses save lives. I can't tell you how many active shooting events I've reviewed. And what do I see? Time and time again, people making some of the most foolish, ridiculous choices that gets them killed. You want to make intelligent responses, and again, by ahead of time visualizing and creating that survival mindset for the world you live in, that provides you with the ability to make those intelligent responses. That's the goal. This is very simple, ladies and gentlemen. Go home alive. That is the one and only goal. Now, survival mindset. There's really 3 categories of people when it comes to survival mindset. The first, instinctive. For some reason, God just blessed these people with this survival mindset. They're few and far between, but they're definitely out there. We saw a situation a while back up in Indianapolis at a middle school where a young man, teacher, had that instinctive survival mindset, tackled the young shooter, got him down. He got himself shot 3 times. But it was such a unique event because in all of the active shooting events to date, we really had not had any true active shooting events where there wasn't at least 1 fatality. But thanks to Jason Seaman, that school teacher up in Indianapolis, there were no fatalities that day. But let's go to where I want you to be. It's a developed survival mindset. Again, through visualization, you can visualize and create your survival mindset. Unfortunately, despite our best efforts, time and again, what do we find the majority of people in regards to survival mindsets? Frankly, I just call them ostriches. They're sticking their head in the sand. It's not going to happen to me. And these are the people most likely in a crisis. They're going to freeze and they're going to get themselves killed. Folks, That is not a category you want to find yourself in whatsoever. So, question is, okay, how do I survive? Well, right there I have the picture of 26 individuals, 20 children, 6 educators from Sandy Hook Elementary. Imagine in your mind just how long 4 minutes is. That's all it took for all 26 of those people to perish. 4 short minutes. So if you don't have your survival mindset, when your mind loaded with good, intelligent responses, that may be the outcome. Now, creating this survival mindset, well, I got to pull you out of your comfort zone. Folks, this is not a pleasant topic. Let's be real. But relax. It's not like the old driver's ed where we're going to show you a bunch of gory films. That's not the case. What I do want to do is guide you down that road and let you use your own intelligence to create your own personal, unique survival mindset for the world you live in. Doing this, you're likely going to establish some good, sound logic and data up there. And in the crisis, most likely, you will make the right choice that significantly improves your odds of survival. They're shooting. What do I do? Well, trust your eyes. A lot of times your ears will mislead you because shots will ring out and the sound will echo around and you'll be misled as to where the shooter is. So use your eyes, number one. Where are people running from? Where are they running to? That is critically important. And especially in your normal everyday environment, which is probably work, have a predetermined escape route. Know how you're going to get out. And as you're running, you don't want to run in a straight line. Zigzag back and forth. Make yourself a difficult target for that shooter and avoid large groups of people. The shooter is going to go for the easiest shot, and that is a group of individuals. So try to stay out of those groups. And this may sound crazy, but slow down. Assess the situation. Now, I'm only talking 2 or 3 seconds, but in the crisis, that's going to seem like an eternity. But slow down, think through it, make an intelligent decision as to what you should do. That will serve you well. Now, here's a definition of an active shooter. We talked about that a little bit before, but now, here's the thing. See where it talks about robbery and kidnapping? Major takeaway, an active shooter is different than any other criminal. They're wired totally different. Well, what do I mean? Let's look at robbery. This guy wakes up one day and looks out the window and says, wow, it's a beautiful day. The clouds have parted, the sun's shining, but I'm broke. I need money to party and have a good time. So what does he do? Grabs a weapon, goes down to the nearest bank, walks in, sticks a weapon in their face and says, I need to make a withdrawal. And they go, certainly. They give him a bunch of cash. He's all giddy, gay, and excited. He's got his bag full of money. He turns to leave to go have a really good time. And wouldn't you know it? There stands a uniformed HPD officer right behind him. This officer just came in to cash an extra duty check. Now the poor officer has about 2.5 hours worth of paperwork, and this gentleman is in jail. But let's take an active shooter. He wakes up, looks out the window and says, this is it. My day. I've planned, I've prepared, I've practiced. This is my day. After today, they're going to know who I am. What is his mission? It is to die and take as many of you with him as he possibly can. So be clear. There's no negotiating. There's no talking them out of it. You'll get yourself killed in a heartbeat. I'd give anything if a few years ago I'd had a chance to go to Sparks Middle School out in Reno, Nevada before their active shooting event. Because when the 12-year-olds started shooting and killing people, this gentleman, Michael Lansbury, former Marine, he did exactly as you'd expect him to do. He bravely walked up to the young boy on the playground. Son, calm down. Relax. We're going to get you through this. Trust me. Little did Michael understand. Every step closer, he put more and more pressure on the 12-year-old. Every step he took, it was reported that the 12-year-old said the same thing. Don't make me do this. Don't make me do this. And finally, the 12-year-old pulled the trigger. Michael Lansbury died in the dirt on the playground. So ladies and gentlemen, run for your life. Don't try to negotiate or talk them out, even if it's a young child. They will kill you. We do know that 60% of the active shooter events are over before the police can ever arrive. So obviously there is a significant possibility you may play an important role in bringing this thing to a safe conclusion. And doing so, again, I suggest having your predetermined survival mindset loaded with good, intelligent options. You will find that of great value in one of these situations. I'm going to give you a toolkit of ideas. There's no way I can stay here today and say, all right, in 2.5 or 6 years from now, oh, you should do X, Y, or Z. That's ridiculous, folks. There's no way I can do that. So basically, I'm going to give you this toolkit of ideas, and in that crisis, you are going to make that critical life and death decision for yourself. Now, a few years ago, I had the opportunity to spend half a day with Colonel Danny Steubens, Connecticut State Police. Learned quite a bit from Colonel Steubens that day. He was in charge of managing that horrific event at Sandy Hook a few years back. And one of the things I learned is that these situations never play out the way you think. Now, they had teachers there that were instructed to lock down. However, there were 2 teachers there that did not follow instructions. And at that time, what did they do? They told their students, come with me. They ran out of the class, up the hill to the fire station. And not one of those students or teachers were injured whatsoever. Yet the remaining ones that locked down in the classroom, they had an absolute horrific bloodbath of dead children and teachers. Now, after all this was over, the people of Newtown, Connecticut, they got together and they took a vote. And they voted to bulldoze down that school. They wanted nothing to remind them of this event. Now, it was a perfectly good school, but it's totally understandable what they decided to do. But they didn't stop there. They also bulldozed down the $1 million+ house of the shooter, again trying to erase all the ideas. Now, let me tell you, these people went through a great deal of trauma, as did Colonel Steubens' men. Now, half of his men, 50%, came to him afterwards and said, Colonel, I can't ever do that again. They gave up their careers in law enforcement, moved on to find new professions, but Colonel Steubens and the 50% that remained, they got counseling. They're still getting counseling in many cases to deal with this horrific event. Now you see the young lady up there on the left. That phone call she's just taken advised her her baby was dead. About 3 weeks later, she came out and made this statement. We cannot control the situations that come to us in life. We can only choose how to respond to them. Now, I think, number one, there is incredible truth in that statement about life in general, but my goal today is to focus on that word choose. I want to give you some very viable, credible, intelligent choices from which you could choose should you unfortunately ever become the victim of an active shooter.
It may feel like just another day at the office, but occasionally, life feels more like an action movie than reality. The authorities are working hard to protect you and to protect our public spaces. But sometimes bad people do bad things. Their motivations are different. The warning signs may vary, but the devastating effects are the same. And unfortunately, you need to be prepared for the worst. If you were ever to find yourself in the middle of an active shooter event, your survival may depend on whether or not you have a plan. The plan doesn't have to be complicated. There are 3 things you could do that make a difference. Run, hide, fight. First and foremost, if you can get out, do. Always try and escape or evacuate, even when others insist on staying. Encourage others to leave with you, but don't let them slow you down with indecision. Remember what's important, you, not your stuff. Leave your belongings behind and try to find a way to get out safely. Trying to get yourself out of harm's way needs to be your #1 priority. Once you are out of the line of fire, try to prevent others from walking into the danger zone and call 911. If you can't get out safely, you need to find a place to hide. Act quickly and quietly. Try to secure your hiding place the best you can. Turn out lights, and if possible, remember to lock doors. Silence your ringer and vibration mode on your cell phone. And if you can't find a safe room or closet, try to conceal yourself behind large objects that may protect you. Do your best to remain quiet and calm. As a last resort, if your life is at risk, whether you are alone or working together as a group, fight. Act with aggression. Improvise weapons. Disarm him. And commit to taking the shooter down, no matter what. Try to be aware of your environment. Always have an exit plan. Know that in an incident like this, victims are generally chosen randomly. The event is unpredictable and may evolve quickly. The first responders on the scene are not there to evacuate or tend to the injured. They are well trained and are there to stop the shooter. Your actions can make a difference for your safety and survival. Be aware and be prepared. And if you find yourself facing an active shooter, there are 3 key things you need to remember to survive. Run, hide, fight.
Now, we saw in the video the bad guy. Unfortunately, he's not terribly representative because he is actually one of our retired SWAT officers, all right? But you have to have this survival mindset and you have to be ready to take action. Now, in the video, you saw the young ladies at the door as the shooter came in. Now, keep in mind, in many cases, they're not going to be getting through the door. In fact, historically, seldom do they ever get through a door that is secured in any manner whatsoever. And we'll talk about that in a bit. But you saw the two young ladies. The first one, death grip on, with both hands onto the weapon, and then her weight takes her to the ground. The second one, I would suggest, if you're in that role, you look around the room, you get a table or chair, pull it up next to number one, jump up on it, give yourself a little more height and a little more impact, a little more gravity helping you to take the guy down. And if you've got a pair of scissors with you or something like that, and look around the room, find the trash, get the plastic bag. You're on the table, he comes through, number one locks on, takes him down. As he's going down, hit him in the back with those scissors or whatever object that you have. You get him on the ground, take that plastic bag, wrap it around his neck, cut off his air supply, and it's all over. Folks, this is critical. You must keep your wits about you in these crisis situations because you do have a fighting chance. Again, you're using your brain. Now, once you're there, as I said, you need to look around and see what's available to you. So many times I review these situations, and what do I hear the people saying? I heard the gunshots, but I thought it was fireworks. Folks, in this day and age, any loud sound out in public, I'm sorry, it's a gunshot. Treat it as a gunshot until proven otherwise. If you're wrong, so what? If you're correct, that may give you just the few seconds you need to get out of harm's way to literally save your life, all right? Now, what do we see in Las Vegas? Over 800 casualties, folks. There's no city in America that has enough first responders to deal with that kind of situation. I listened to a trauma doctor from Vegas. He made a profound statement. He said, look, you get somebody on my operating room table in 5 minutes, suffered a massive loss of blood from car wreck, gunshot, industrial accident, doesn't make any difference. 5 minutes, nobody's done anything to stem the loss of blood. I'm telling you, every single time they're going to die on my table. So, ladies and gentlemen, it is inherently necessary that you and I become the first responders. You must know how to use a tourniquet, how to stop that massive bleeding. And let's be honest, it may be an absolute stranger that you saved their life, but this skill may also enable you to save the life of one of your dearest family members. So please, get training in basic first aid for gunshot wounds. You just never know when that will be critical. Well, where are you going to do that? Well, here's one very good option. There's many of them out there, but this is a group called SETTRAC, Southeast Texas Regional Advisory Council. It's a little government group, goes around training people in first aid for gunshot wounds. All right? There's a number you can call, get them out to your business, your church, your civic center, and they will conduct this training at no charge. So please, make sure you find some avenue to get this training that if you're ever the victim of an active shooter or in a critical life and death decision where someone is bleeding to death, you know what to do. You don't have to stand idly by and watch them die when in fact you could have saved them. Now, the FBI, they say there's 5 phases to an active shooter. I agree with them. I think they're on point. First, they fantasize. They obsess about these terrible acts. Oh, they create a plan. And next, they prepare. They may go out and buy the G.I. Joe garb, all this stuff that makes them feel strong and macho. And then they practice, perhaps like the Columbine boys. They go out and they target practice, even have their friends videotape it. And number 5, they kill all these people. Well, what's critical about this? Folks, there's obviously a timeline here. These are not spontaneous events, but that's really good because during this time, they simply cannot help but put off certain signals, certain red flags, certain suicidal indicators. And if you, by fate, are consistently around them and know what to watch out for, you can do what? You can intervene. Well, how? There's various options. First one, pretty rare direct encounter. Charlie, what's going on? I see you're having issues. Sit down, let's talk. Most people, candidly, are not really good at that. That's okay. So go to your supervisor, HR, senior management, but nobody in the organization's comfortable with it. That's okay. Hey, give us a call. We just happen to be one of the few departments in America that has an entire division of officers that are trained in how to deal with mental health issues. We call them crisis intervention trained. In fact, in Houston, on any given day, we have 4 of those officers paired up with clinicians from the Mental Health Association in patrol units going about the city. We get a 911 call with the Mental Health Nexus, we send a team out. They get on scene. Here's this paranoid schizophrenic. He's trying to communicate, but he just can't do it. Thank goodness, these trained professionals that we now have on scene know how to work with these people. And in most cases, what we end up with is a peaceful resolution to a mental health crisis. Unfortunately, in the past and in other locations currently that don't have our resources, these situations tend to go tragically violent. So folks, if you have a situation or you have someone at work or at church or wherever that you're concerned about that's putting off these signals, give us a call. Share the information. Let us get out there and bring this thing to a peaceful conclusion, hopefully before it ever becomes an incident, all right? Now, we're partnering with the schools. You know, so often we have these situations in the school, but can you remember back when you were in school, what was one of the worst things you could be labeled? A snitch, a rat. You told on somebody. Well, that's understandable, but let me be honest. I think most of our young people are really good at heart, but they're under a lot of peer pressure these days, probably a lot more than we were under when we were in school. But we've come up with this idea we think is going to yield great dividends. We're partnering with Crime Stoppers. We've created that poster you see right there, and now we're putting them throughout the schools where that young people that know that Johnny is going to do a Columbine, well, they can call and they can share that information and we can intervene. And the principal will not know who it was. The teacher will not know who it was. Their mom and dad will not know it was them that called in and tipped us off. So we really have high hopes that this new program will yield great dividends and save many, many lives of our precious children in school. Now we're going to go through this kind of fast. We got about 3 slides that are basically warning signs. They're argumentative, they're uncooperative with supervisors, they have rage reactions, they're always the victim, they blame others, they have increased accidents, they make a lot of mistakes, they manipulate and exploit others, they bully, threaten, or committing some type of violence, they're withdrawn, depressed, they avoid co-workers, they have drug and alcohol abuse, increased absenteeism, physical complaints, noticeable decrease in grooming and personal hygiene, increased severe mood swings, unstable emotional responses, suicidal talks, putting things in order. If this is a coworker, they may come up to you one day and say, hey, you don't need to worry. I just got my will rewritten. Everything's organized, everything's in place. It's not going to be a problem for you or anybody. I got it all worked out. Big sign. Now they're paranoid, everybody's against me, increased talks of problems at home, but they can't figure them out. So they bring them to work because they know you're going to step in and help figure them out. But if you're really smart, you'll run from that opportunity as fast as you can. They talk of previous incidents of violence. They express empathy for individuals committing violence. They're the kind, after the massacre at the movie theater in Aurora, Colorado, they're likely to come to work the next day and say something like this. Did you see the Joker? Did you see that dude, man? He came alive. Those people he put down in that movie theater, they didn't get up. That was the real deal. None of this Hollywood make-believe. No, that was the real thing. They're likely to express themselves this way. Increase unsolicited comments about firearms, other deadly weapons, and violent crimes. Now, to be perfectly candid, driving to work on pretty much any given day, probably some half dozen of those characteristics apply to me. But ladies and gentlemen, we all have bad days. Here's the key right there, consistency. Do you see somebody day in, day out, week in, week out, consistently exhibiting a handful of these characteristics? If you do, please get some type of intervention going at one of those levels we previously talked about. But if somebody does this just one time, don't freak out and go calling us and saying we have an active shooter, because they just may be having a bad day. But if you see that consistent pattern, this is your time to step up and take action. When shots are fired, first thing you want to do is run. Get up, get out. Escaping is always your first option. Now, a couple years ago, I'm over at the Hobby Center one night teaching a group of volunteers. During one of the videos, I couldn't help but notice a lady sitting on the front row. She's wearing this iridescent orange jogging suit. She looks like a buoy for the Coast Guard, folks. Let me tell you, if you're wearing something like that and you're the victim of an active shooter, you're going to call attention to yourself. So cover that up, get rid of it, one thing or another, but don't call attention to yourself by bright clothing in the midst of an active shooting event. Be unconventional, break windows. Let's say you just finished up at the dentist. You're getting ready to come back to work. You walk to the door, you open the hall door, and as you do, shots ring out. You look in the lobby, you see a shooter, people dropping left and right, and you see an exit at the other end of the hall. You tell yourself, when he looks that way, I'm gone. Don't do that. If you have a survival mindset, i.e., you have visualized being in a similar situation to this before, what you will do is about face, go back through that building, get to an outside window, throw a heavy object through the window, and go to safety. Even from the second floor, bust the window and jump. You younger guys, you're going to bounce right back. Us older guys, we're going to get 1-2 months of rehab, but I assure you, that is much better than that AK-47 round going through one ear and out the other. But if you don't think about this ahead of time, you're likely not to do that. What you're likely to do is roll the dice with your life, step out in the hall, make yourself a target for the shooter. Not a smart move, folks. Now, personally, I got a problem with this because I work on the 21st floor at headquarters. So here's the deal. If you work on the 3rd floor or anything higher in a building, it's a different ball game. The field of play is the floor you're on. You're not going to get on the elevator because if those doors reopen and he's there, you have no chance. Stairwells, forget those. You know, if he takes a shot and he misses, these concrete fireproof stairwells, that bullet's going to ricochet and likely hit you, so stay out of the stairwells. So what does that leave? You have to know all the hideouts, the file rooms, copy rooms, work rooms, restrooms that are on your floor, places that you can take refuge ahead of time. That is what is absolutely critical. And again, you got to get this locked in. Let's say you're running down the hallway, you turn, you make a right, and you get your hand on the restroom door to go in to take refuge. But the last second, because you don't have a survival mindset, what do? You notice a sign, and it says wrong gender. It's the wrong sex. Well, without a survival mindset, you're probably going to kick into your normal, polite, nice person, everyday mode and continue down the way until you get to the right restroom for your gender. Unfortunately, you may get shot and killed. So you got to have this survival mindset ahead of time so that you understand that any port in a storm is okay when your life is on the line. Again, you want to make those intelligent decisions, not the foolish ones. Weapons. Hey, you hear shots? Do you have a pair of scissors there at your desk? That's important. Grab them. Take them with you just in case running doesn't work. Hiding fizzles out. You actually have to go hands-on, face-to-face with this lunatic. At least you have your scissors. Oh, and ladies, please leave those suitcases you call purses behind. Look, and guys, you don't need those backpacks. There's nothing in this moment that you need. And you have to realize anything that you delay to grab, to take with you may slow you down 1 second, 2, 3, 4. That may make the difference in living or dying. So don't do that. Leave your belongings behind. You can come back later and get them. Hiding. It's a smart idea, like I said, ahead of time to figure out where you can hide out. Preferably a room with no windows is a good place. Lock the door, barricade it. Now, in all the active shooting events, over 1,600 that I've seen over the years, I've not seen one where the shooter breached a door that was secured somehow. It was locked, barricaded, jammed with a wedge, tied with a cord. They don't do it. Well, why? Because they have this mindset. They do understand that they got about 6 minutes of time before the police get there and put them down. So they're not going to waste time, trying to bust through the door to get in to kill you. So barricade it. Now, if you're in a situation where you have a bunch, say you're in a church environment and you have a bunch of long tables that you can stack end to end from one door to the door, and that prohibits, that's another idea. Think ahead of time what you can do. But folks, stay clear of the door. I know we have these big, heavy commercial doors, but bullets still go through those, I'm telling you. And here's another thing. When you're hiding out, think about high, think about low. Can you get on top of a bunch of filing cabinets? Can you get flat on the floor? Because odds are he's going to shoot right through that middle area. So go high, go low, avoid the bullets if at all possible. Turn off your cell phones, turn off the lights. Now we're talking about these commercial doors. They're 1.5 inches or so thick, heavy. You would think that would stop the bullet. So I took 2 square feet from the door here at headquarters. I gave it to SWAT and I said, gentlemen, please do your thing. Look at that. Every single round, every caliber that they shot came through that door with what I call terminal velocity. In other words, if it goes through the door and hits you in a vital organ, the odds are quite great you're gonna die. So don't be misled that these big, heavy commercial doors are going to protect you. Weapons. Well, we usually are not carrying guns or anything like that in a work environment or at church. But folks, we still have weapons everywhere we go. One of my favorite, fire extinguishers. Those are readily available. Grab that. If he gets through the door, which is unlikely if you secure it somehow, but if he does, you take that fire extinguisher, stick it in his face, you let it go until it's empty. When it's through, you hit him over the head with that pretty red container. Or maybe you found those scissors we talked about, any kind of broken glass held in a cloth. That's pretty wicked. Pocket knife, whatever the case. Now, I send my youngest daughter to school every day with a deadly weapon. You may think that's out of line. Well, that deadly weapon is a ballpoint pen. Folks, if that's all you have, use it. Now let me tell you, this can be effective. There's a former police officer that wakes up every morning a quadriplegic because somebody stabbed him in the neck with a ballpoint pen. The bottom line is, in these situations, you use whatever you have because this is truly a fight for your life. Now the question is your car a weapon? Absolutely. Your car is an excellent weapon if you happen to be in it and there's a shooter. Now, a few years back, I'm getting ready to come to work, backing out of the driveway, the phone rings, it's the command center, and they say, Mr. Daniel, we got an active shooter on Law Street just off of Westland. So I head that direction. And fortunately, I get there just after the action is over, the way, frankly, as a civilian staff, I prefer it. And what's transpired, I found out, is in the previous 30 minutes, the shooter has seriously wounded 10 people. Now, most of them lived in these nice apartments with garages attached. They had backed out of the garage, pulled up to the gate. The great gate parted. They drove out like every day to go to work. But this day, parallel to the curb, parked right across the street from the gate, is that little green Porsche convertible you see. And the shooter is standing right next to his little car. And as people come through the gate, he takes a .45 and he's putting rounds right down through the windshield, seriously wounding all 10 of these people. Unfortunately, nobody had a survival mindset. So in the absence of a survival mindset, you're likely going to default to instinct. What's the instinctive reaction? Whip the car to the left, get away from the threat. That's exactly what all 10 of those people did, okay? What if the first person out of the gate that morning had a survival mindset? Instead of turning the car to the left to flee the threat and get away, what if they had gone straight ahead, gunned it, and pinned that guy between the bumper of their car and the side of his little Porsche? 9 more people wouldn't have been shot at all that morning. 9. So folks, having your survival mindset, again, is absolutely critical in this crazy world we live in today. Let's talk about some techniques. Combat breathing. Oh, ladies, you give it a different name. Lamaze breathing. Same thing, whether we're talking bullets or babies or whatever. It's how you control yourself through your breath control. Number one, you breathe in to a count of 4. You hold your breath to a count of 4. You exhale to a count of 4. You do this 4 more times, and you will find your blood pressure comes down just a little bit. You're a little calmer, a little more in control, a little better prepared to make those intelligent, critical decisions that will contribute most likely to saving your life. Survival mindset, all right, we've got to the final option. We're going to have to fight this guy. Somehow he's gotten through all the lines of defense. We got to go hands-on, but it's going to take a radical mindset change, folks. Now let me give you an example. As a parent or grandparent, the day this lunatic shows up to kill, you brought that child. And of course, that child is right there in harm's way. My question is, are you capable of getting vicious and violent in order to save your child or your grandchild? Absolutely. That's the place we all have to go, folks, to be successful at mortal combat against these people. And you cannot allow your emotions to take control. When your emotions take control, the battle is over and you have not won. So again, if you visualized ahead of time, odds are pretty good you're going to be able to keep yourself emotionally under control for just a little bit in order to deal with this life-threatening challenge to you. Here's another technique, swarming. Okay, let's say it's Saturday. You're going to the mall shopping for whatever excites you in life. You got 2 or 3 of your best friends with you. Where do you start every expedition like that? Starbucks, of course. So you're standing out in front of Starbucks, sipping your coffee, talking to your friends about all the good things we're going to do today, and somebody whips out a pistol in the mall, randomly starts shooting. You have nowhere to hide. You have no weapon to use. Your only option is to swarm him, tackle him, take him down. Now, I understand. Somebody in your group may get shot. Somebody may die. But if you stand there and do absolutely nothing, odds are not going to be in your favor. Remember on that fateful day in September 9/11, when that airliner flew over Pennsylvania and those brave young men attacked the terrorists in the cockpit? Now I know they took the plane down into the ground and they died. But we will never know how many hundreds, if not thousands of people were saved in Washington, D.C., our nation's capital, by the heroic, intelligent response of those young men by swarming those terrorists and taking that plane down. So swarming, just one more tactic or technique. But the most critical thing, ladies and gentlemen, is critical thinking. Make the most intelligent choice you can. Again, at Sandy Hook, the 2 teachers that took their kids and they ran up to the fire station, they thought critically. They saved the lives of all of their children and themselves. Unfortunately, the others didn't fare quite so well. So critical thinking, again, is absolutely important. Now, let me tell you, critical thinking, that means you assess the situation. And it may mean go against some of the things I've told you here today. Look, candidly, there's no way I can sit here and tell you, all right, in 2.5, 6 years from now, oh, you should do X, Y, or Z. Come on, folks, that's ridiculous. Take the tools I'm giving you. Think, apply them to your situation, because you will be the most qualified at that moment in time to make that critical life and death decision for yourself. Every officer in our department's been through 2 days of intense active shooter training. I can testify to that because I'm the only civilian, to my knowledge, that has been through this training. We take the fight to the bad guy, plain and simple. We're not waiting for SWAT. We don't have that time. Now, in the beginning, what we did tell the officers, you get on scene, you get geared up, you're ready to go. You stand by till at least one more officer shows up to back you up, and then you go in as a team. But then Sandy Hook came along. We said, wait. We can't get there, be ready to go to war with this guy, and we're going to wait for somebody to back us up, because every gunshot we hear, we know is another child dying. Please, we now have instructions for the officers. It's in writing. First officer on scene, with or without backup, we go. We go to the sound of the killing, plain and simple. We've also evaluated our firearms, our tactical training. Long guns, we now have about 1,400 officers certified to carry assault rifles out there on the streets of Houston, should they need them in these terrible situations. We also teach the officers what we call the priority of life skill. Officer, you get out there on the street, you have to make that critical life and death decision. Who lives, who dies, hostages, innocent bystanders. They have the first pass on living. Now, second-class citizens, I'm sorry, it's police officers. Once upon a time, every officer raised his or her right hand. In essence, what they said, if it is absolutely necessary, there's no other option, I will put my life on the line for the citizens of Houston. If you come to police headquarters, we have a nice museum that's free on the ground floor. At the back is that granite wall you see. We have approximately 115 names on that. That represents 115 men and women that fulfilled that promise to you and me, that we might live in a relatively safe city. So I just ask this. When you see officers and you see those badges up there on their chest, tell yourself, when that officer came to work today, they promised their boss a whole lot more than I ever promised my boss. Those are the men and women we have out there on the streets of Houston, day in, day out, night in, night out, willing to put their lives on the line for each and every one of us. But what about suspects? Well, I'll be candid with you. We're going to do everything we can to take them into custody. But if they give us no option, we will do whatever we must do, because the priority is to stop the killing, period. Now we're going to talk about a little show here. Alon Stevie, former Israeli commando. In this video, he is showing a college class how to take down an active shooter. So I think you will find this pretty revealing.
Is given the airline
like an average American 20-year-old.
Basically, what we're dealing with here is a last resort survival measure. The active shooter or the terrorist is on the premises shooting people. How would you know, first of all? Well, it's going to be kind of obvious. Screams, gunfire. You know how to recognize gunfire? I don't know if most of you have ever heard live gunfire. It doesn't sound like in the movies. Very important, you learn how to recognize gunfire in a crowded environment. We teach that in the program. We'll distinguish between real gunfire and non-real gunfire. You recognize gunfire, you're hearing screams, perhaps you even see casualties or injured people. You see people running away. You are not able to run away and make it. Why would one not be able to run away and escape? Because you're trapped. Now let's talk about responding to an active shooter and the timeliness of it. How long do you think it will take you, all of you, to get off your chair from where you are right now and make it to me, right here? If you were running for your life.
Seconds.
How many seconds? I guarantee you, top 3. But I don't want to guarantee it. I want you to do it. Boom! Very nice job. That was excellent. I knew I could count on UCI for all this. That good stuff. Fantastic. Very nice. Now, once again, would you be prepared to do that? Well, guess what? I think so. You're hearing screaming. You're hearing shouts. You're hearing gunfire. Are you going to know it's coming? It's getting closer and louder. This thing is locked down. Sure you will. You'll be ready. But I'm not proposing that you'll wait sitting in your chairs like that. That will be for a surprise entry to that door that will totally unexpected. Not going to be the case. I will teach you where to stand and how to position yourself so you have a tactical advantage versus a shooter coming to that door. So when he comes to that door, he's not going to go and then come in. Okay? He's coming in. He's looking to kill. He's looking for the target. He won't see these two sides. You have a coordinated action coming on him. One of you, at least one of you, if not both of you, are going to be successful at, hey, again, not putting a handcuff on the guy and arresting him or killing him. No. Stopping him from shooting, bringing him to the floor, and containing him on the floor so he can't continue his violence action. Very simple. Okay? Since we're going to use two examples here. One is on this door that has one side only, and then two is that door that has two sides in the event that you have two types of scenarios that come at you. And that's why I use this classroom as well, because there are two kinds of door. Now, what will help you, because obviously not the whole classroom needs to be here. Who is going to make contact? The first two, top, the first two. So two people on each door, on both sides of the door. No, wait, no, yeah, I'm explaining and then I'll call you. Okay, one. Second, what does everybody else do? Where? No, where would you be? In front of him? You just learned a big lesson. When he comes in, he's looking straight ahead. He's looking straight ahead. So safety says anybody who doesn't have a role, and many of you shouldn't have a role in this case, get out of the zone. Get out of the kill zone. So go there. In the far corner against the same wall he comes to, or that far corner. Definitely not in front of him. But there's going to be a few of you that are going to be required to do one very important thing that's going to assure the success of those by the door. And that's attracting his vision and attention on them by throwing object and running across the room in the opposite direction, if you can help it, than where the attackers, defenders are going to be positioned at. So if I'm coming here, you don't want me as a shooter to turn and look here, right? What you're going to do, you're going to go like that and throw object running this way. I'm coming this way, bam, that's it. Now how much time do I have, honestly, when I come to that door? 1 second, baby. What? So we're talking, time has now shrunk significantly for the shooter to be able to be shooting effectively. So just practice with me one time the drill. Here, no, come here. One, and then you, right there. Good. What will help you a lot is actually push the knee here. Yeah, because that will collapse a lot easier than my entire body, especially if I'm strong. So just aim for the knee. You see that? That's right. Try one time. The knee, yeah. Oh yeah, much better. Nice job. Shots fired in the corridor. Shots fired in the corridor. Nice and safe. One, yes, sir. Right on. So, you okay? Yeah. So, shots fire. Move. One, go. You good, Steve?
Yeah, good.
All right. So, what did you shoot at?
What's that?
What did you shoot at?
One shot in the middle with one person, one shot.
You did see a person. You managed to see a person.
Well, it was dark, so.
All right.
I don't know.
Now, did you notice that?
Yes,
Did that throw you off any?
for sure, because I had to look around it,
Right.
for sure.
Okay.
That took away a potential target area.
Right there.
So I had my first response was to look for a target other than this.
Other than this. So
So
it took
the
you,
one-
what, a second and a half?
For sure, it played into the Yoda.
Of course.
So it delayed me a second or two to look for another target. Maximum one shot, and I don't even know if it was a person.
So we now cut down 2, maybe 3 shots from before with the handgun, with broad daylight, with one side surprise, to maximum 1 shot without knowing if it's even a target. That's a big improvement, right? Big improvement. Okay, one more time. Shots fire. Shots fire. All right. No martial art is involved. This is basic stuff. Football, tackle, wrestling. Overwhelm the target. Overwhelm the threat. This is with a machine gun, guys. If he had a box cutter, do you think he had better chances? I don't think so. Right? You have to do this with a box cutter to make a difference. No way. He always has to do that. No way. He can't even do one, barely one with a gun. Box cutter, no chance. This information is essential. Anybody out there get caught in the mall in a terrorist attack or any type of attack? Anybody get caught in the school? Essential. You know, get organized. 1, 2, get over here. Ready, ready. This is the game. That's the plan. Can you explain what I just taught you today in a shortened version to a bunch of people? Yes, of course you can. That's why I decided to bring this on to universities and schools. Why? Because it's an educational system. That's what we do. We educate. That's a perfect platform to educate the next generation in creating a safer society.
All right, now, in the video, you saw the young ladies at the door, 2 hands death grip on the weapon, and then they let their weight take them to the ground. That's exactly what you need to do, all right? Get the shooter, get him on the ground where he can't, and point and shoot. If you're the second person in the room, look around the room, see if you can find a trash can, get the plastic bag out of it. If you have a table or chair that you can pull up next to number 1, hop up on it. Gravity will help you just a bit more. You got that knife or a pair of scissors or something with you. He comes through the door. Number 1 locks on, starts to pull him down. You fall off that table or chair, hit him in the back with that sharp instrument. You get him on the ground. You take that plastic bag, you wrap it around his neck, you cut off his air supply. It's all over, folks. And if somehow you get control of the weapon, don't sit there and hold him at gunpoint. We come in, we may not understand that you're the good guy, not the bad guy. Take that weapon, slide it away. Don't take control of the weapon. That is not a good move. Now, as soon as the first officer gets there, as I said before, they're going to gear up. They're going to move right on in. We're going to have long guns. We're not going to stop to help victims. Why? Because our mission is to stop the killing. We must immediately get to the killer and take him down and stop the killing. So, it's incredibly important that you know first aid again for gunshot wounds. How to put a tourniquet on a limb, on yourself, or on someone else. That is absolutely vital. Get that training, folks. And again, our job is to go to the sound of the killing, period. When we get there, we don't know necessarily the good guys from the bad guys. So raise your hand, spread your fingers. Let there be no question as to who you are, that you're a victim, not the bad guy. Officers may ask you to lie on the ground. If they do, so be it. Lie down on the ground. Do whatever they say. Officers are trained that hands kill. Keep your hands where they can see. If you're driving around this afternoon and you are fortunate enough to get a personal invitation to pull to the side of the road so you can get better acquainted with one of our fine officers, keep your hands on the steering wheel. Don't go rummaging through your purse or backpack for your insurance or your driver's license. Don't do that. Put your hands on the wheel. That officer doesn't know when he's coming up to your vehicle whether you're the sweetest person in the world or the most diabolical killer. Keep your hands on the wheel, and then once the officer gets there, the officer will give you instructions. Listen very carefully. If they tell you to get your license, fine. If you have a weapon, make sure you tell them, I have a weapon, and where it is, follow their directions explicitly. Now, when we arrive, stay as calm as you can. I know this is an exciting situation, but do the best you can to stay calm. Follow whatever the officers tell you. Whether it makes sense to you at the moment or not, just do what they tell you. That is critical. We may handcuff you. Don't get excited. We got keys. We'll let you go. But ladies and gentlemen, I'm telling you, you're going to see people die. This is not pleasant. But again, the key is to have your survival mindset so that you make intelligent decisions. You stack the odds in your favor of surviving and not becoming a victim. And if you do, the odds are you will go home alive. That is what is important here. Now, just keep this in mind. On the worst day of your life, all you got to do is call 911, and we're going to be there for you. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for your time and attention today. I sincerely hope you never need any of this information that I've provided to you, but if you do, I think you will find it comes in quite useful to you. Now, this presentation is presented courtesy of the Houston Police Department anywhere in the city limits of Houston, Texas, absolutely free of charge. And on the screen, you can see my phone numbers, both my desk number and my cell number. Give me a call if you would like this training. We'll be more than glad to come out to your business, your church, your civic center, whatever organization you're a member of, and present this presentation to all of your friends, all of your co-workers, and get this information out there. Because the bottom line is, folks, the more people we educate with this information, the more lives we save. Thank you, and be safe.